All right, good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody? Welcome to the Spring Summer 2020 Women's Empowerment event brought to you by Pink. I'm Cynthia Good. I'm so happy to see everybody. The theme today is Use Your Voice. And in keeping with that, we are going to kick it all off with a powerful poem by Mahogany L. Browne. Here is Black Girl Magic.
They say you ain't supposed to be here, black girl. You ain't supposed to wear red lipstick. You ain't supposed to wear high heels. You ain't supposed to smile in public. You ain't supposed to smile nowhere, black girl. You ain't supposed to be no more than a girlfriend. You ain't supposed to get married. You ain't supposed to want no dream that big. You ain't supposed to dream at all. You ain't supposed to do nothing but carry babies and carry felons and carry weeds and carry silence and carry families and carry confusion and carry a nation, but never an opinion. Because you ain't supposed to have nothing to say, black girl, not unless it's a joke. Because you ain't supposed to love yourself, black girl. You ain't supposed to find nothing worth saving in all that brown. You ain't supposed to know that Tina, Beyonce, Cecily, Shonda, Rhymes, shine, 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 black girl. You ain't supposed to love your mind. You ain't supposed to love. You ain't supposed to be loved up on. You only supposed to pose voodoo child, vixen style. You're supposed to pop out babies and hide the stretch marks. You're supposed to be still. So still they think you statue. So still they think you chalked outline. So still they keep thinking you stone. Until you look more Medusa than Viola Davis. Until you sound more Sinead than Kerry Washington. Until you're more side-eyed than Michelle Obama on a Tuesday. But you tell them you are more than a hot coming to Washington set. You are Kunta Kinte's kin. You are a black girl worth remembering, and you are a threat. Knowing yourself, you are a threat. Loving yourself, you are a threat. Loving your kin, you are a threat. Loving your children, you black girl magic, you black girl fly, you black girl brilliant, you black girl wonder, you black girl shine, you black girl bloom, you black girl, and you turning into a beautiful black woman right before our eyes.
Thank you so much. Mahogany Browne joins us from New York. Hi, Mahogany, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for that powerful poem, for writing it and performing it and sharing it with us. It totally sets the tone for the conversation today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mahogany L. Browne. Yeah, amazing. Oh my gosh. It is so great to see you, Mahogany, and to see all of you who are here in person. And we have 1,559 people who have registered to be with us today on live stream. That's pretty cool. These are really extraordinary times we're living in. 100 years ago this month, the 19th Amendment passed, giving women the right to vote. And I would love to stand here before you and say this is a celebration. But that victory fell short because many women of color, especially black women here in the South, did not have the chance to access their right to vote. Really for 45 years later, until 45 years later, due to racist voting restrictions, we had to wait until the Civil Rights Voting Act was passed in 1965. So it's not really a celebration right now. And the fact is that many of the white suffragists sold out their black sisters when it was politically expedient to do so. And I believe that we are still feeling the effects of that sort of repression in daily life today, especially in the workplace. The good news is today in the Fortune 500, there are a record number of women CEOs, 38, right? We're moving in the right direction. Not one of those women is a black woman. This month also marked Equal Black Women's Pay Day, otherwise known as the $1 million pay gap. That represents a disparity between what a white male will earn versus what a Black woman will earn over the course of a career. So this conversation today is really, really important, and it's great to have the chance to talk about this. We need to take a look at how all of us as women can leverage our power and our voices on behalf of ourselves as women, which is pretty hard to do sometimes, and on behalf of other women. How can we step up and speak out when and where we see problems, right? Microaggressions. Women of color face a double bind, gender as well as race discrimination. So it's really hard, and it's a good thing that we're having the chance to talk about it today, really because so much has changed in the world, and I think there's an openness finally to address these kind of issues head on. We couldn't have crucial conversations like this without the support of our sponsor companies, which we appreciate especially now during COVID, when so many of these organizations are canceling gatherings like this, and I know budgets are being cut. So huge, huge heartfelt thanks to our partners. Cox Enterprises, our technology sponsor, thank you so much to Cox. And to the crew, Mike and his team. Because of our partnership with you and your sponsorship, we are able to reach a record number of people, more than we ever have in the 16 years of Pink's existence. So thank you for that. Also, thanks to our other sponsors. I don't need to look at my notes. I know who you are. Truist and UPS, our gold sponsors, and our fantastic bronze sponsors, the Coca-Cola Company, Southern Company, the Home Depot. Also with us today, Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles, and the Social Project, and Carlisle for this beautiful venue. Thank you for hosting us here. All right. We want to include everybody in the conversation today. If you're here in the room, raise your hand. We'd love to get to your questions. If you're watching on live stream, there is a chat function. You can begin sending the questions anytime, and Lisa's keeping an eye out for that. If you hear something and you like it, tweet about it. So if you're watching, it's hashtag use my voice. And if you're here in the room, you can hold up your hashtag use my voice paddle. So could you guys have your paddle? Raise them up. Everybody raise up the paddles. Let me see. Okay, it works. That's so crazy. That's so great. Thank you. All right. I think that's really it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our amazing moderator. I want you to meet, if you don't know her already, Karyn Greer. She's amazing. She is an anchor woman. She's supposed to be on the air right now, actually, anchoring the new newscast. So special thanks. She is a longtime advocate and member of this community, an amazing person, an amazing journalist. And I'm so grateful, Karyn, that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, Cynthia and I competed against each other back in the day from competing stations, Fox 5 for her. It was either 11 Live or CBS 46 for me, but you guys look marvelous. Can you give yourselves a big round of applause? You look fabulous. You know, in this time when, and the ladies and I were saying, we're so sick of Zooming. So it's good to be able to get out and see some people. We just have to remember, don't get too close, right? But thank you for coming out, Cynthia. Thank you for putting this all together, because this is a very important time in our history, an important time in all of our lives, so much going on. And what a great chance to get an opportunity to talk about it, hash it out. I thought it was interesting, one of the statistics you sent me, 59% of Black women say they have never had a chance to meet anyone in upper management. Is that unheard of? Okay, that's the kinds of things we want to fix today. That shouldn't be. You should be able to meet everyone you work with, and you shouldn't be nervous about doing that, or you shouldn't be left out. It's great to have a seat at the table, but we know everybody can't fit at the table. So it's important for us to make everyone feel a part of what's going on. And these women on this panel are amazing. You're gonna love them and their stories. So, get your questions together so that you can ask them whatever you want. Nothing is off the table, all right? Okay, so let's go with our first panelists. They're saying, what do you mean nothing's off the table? We didn't discuss that. Did you see that? All right, from another competitor, but amazing organization. She's a senior vice president, general counsel, law and policy, oversees Cox's compliance, legal operations, litigation, regulatory and privacy and corporate government affairs, and is a strategic legal advisor to the CCI executive leadership team on policy and strategic initiatives related to all of Cox's lines of business. She joined Cox 23 years ago. Jennifer W. Hightower. Let's give her a nice, come on now. Make her feel good. Next, we have Director of Global Diversity and Inclusion. She helps oversee the company's D&I strategies at the company that ships more than 5 billion packages and documents a year and employs nearly 500,000 people. During her 25 years at United Parcel Service, she's held a variety of roles, including HR Director in Michigan and Chicago. What can Brown do for you? Welcome, Susan Schmidlkofer. Our next panelist is Chief Marketing Officer. With more than 20 years of marketing and sales leadership experience, she directs U.S. marketing and communications for the Global Staffing and Workforce Solutions Company. Previously, she served as Senior Vice President of Marketing and Alliances at the American Cancer Society and held leadership roles at the Coca-Cola Company. Join me in welcoming Irma Shrivastava.
Thank you.
Shrivastava.
You got it.
Shrivastava. I practiced, I really did. And, we aren't all able to be here, so we have another very important panelist. There she is, joining us by Zoom. She is the Senior Vice President, National Retail Sales for the Coca-Cola Company. She's joining us from a remote location. I love saying that. It sounds so, White Housey,
It sounds official. It sounds official.
She spent 20 years at the Coca-Cola Company, on the company and bottler sides. She has held other key senior leadership roles across the company in the areas of national and regional sales, sales operations, finance, as well as food service, on-premise, and retail business segments. Previously, she worked in finance, and she holds a BBA and MBA. Join me in welcoming Pamela Stewart.
Hi, everyone.
I love it. All right, so we want, if you like what you hear, once again, tweet it. And what is the hashtag again?
Use my voice.
I'm sorry, it sounds like there's some confusion. What's the hashtag for today?
Use my voice.
Okay, so you hear something, you see something. I love the tables. Go on and tweet that. Tweet who's sitting by you. Tweet the panel. Tweet, tweet, tweet. We want to get that out there, okay? We would love that. And add at CBS 46 on it for me too, so we can get them back at the station. All right, so without further ado, let's go. We are ready to get in here, Cynthia, and get our questions and get some of our answers, right? Are we ready?
All right.
Okay. Ready to go? Okay. Let us begin. Just wanted to make sure I got the bosses okay to get started. And everybody's enjoying. Are you enjoying this lunch? How wonderful, and what a great venue. So let's thank them again as well. Carlisle, what a great venue. I talked to Caroline, she's been here just since November. So, let's make sure that we support the companies that are supporting Cynthia today. That would be very, very nice. So let's talk about what's going on, ladies, in our world today and what we've been seeing. And I've thought a lot about today and how we were going to just kind of kick it off. And I think one of the big questions is, what differences have you noticed today from when you started in the business?
So that's a great question. I thought you were going to ask about pandemic. She went off
We're
script,
going-
ladies. Yeah, she went totally off script, so let's just be very transparent about that. The difference is today, so I've been at Cox for 23 years, so that's like a lifetime for some of you, obviously. For me, it's been like a minute. But I have seen total transformation, at least in my industry. I'm on the communications industry, so think about that. That has totally changed in 23 years. I came to a company that was a cable company. It's now an internet broadband communications company. So the business world has changed, but more importantly that, I think the social awareness for women has changed and for minorities. And I'm not talking about Cox, I'm talking holistically. It's come too late. But it's now, I think we're now at a time where people are much more cognizant that we need to do something for minority employees. Black women need a better voice at any company, and I know that my company is taking a lot of actions at becoming more purposeful and intentional in ensuring that we're hiring diverse candidates and putting them in more senior roles. It's something that we are now purposely working on, which we didn't do 23 years ago.
And let me add for Cox Communications, it has changed. It is kind of segmented off. People thought of Cox as WSB, SB Radio, so tell us, what is Cox now here?
That's a great point, because you're right, we no longer own the WSB channel. So Cox now is, there is Communications, which is an internet communications company. We are a nationwide company that provides cable, telephone, broadband services, and we are providing services to all of our local communities. And then we also own a very large company called Cox Auto, which is a conglomeration of multiple companies, like 25 companies, and it's everything in the auto world. And we also still own the AJC, which is a blessing, because we love that paper. And we have our Cox Enterprises, which is here headquartered in Atlanta, which is our headquarter organization.
Got it. All right. Pam, you've really, I'm sure, seen a lot of changes. Coca-Cola Company has undergone so many different transformations. Talk about what you've seen from when you started to now.
I think the pace of change is so different. The change of consumer trends, even more different. I think the urgency of consumers demanding that brands be more than brands and truly be community influencers, policy influencers, government influencers is definitely more prominent now. I think in the way of change, I think many of you may have read today a very large restructure of the organization that we announced a little bit earlier. And so I would say change is going to be a part of all of it. I think going back to the other sentiments with regards to the urgency around female empowerment and leadership and people of color, it certainly is on the docket. There's a lot of work to do, even far more on the people of color segment. You just named at the beginning, Cynthia shared exactly how many CEOs there are. And I won't remind everybody on that number. I think you remember that number. It's an easy number to remember. So there's a lot of work to do, because until you're in the room at the table, it's very difficult to have the lasting massive changes that's necessary in order to bring more inclusive voices. And Coca-Cola is on that journey as well.
Yeah, in case you did forget or didn't hear, that number was 0. 0. Susan?
Exactly.
So I just celebrated last month my 26th year with UPS, and today happens to be UPS's 113th anniversary, so that's pretty exciting. So, yes, and I think one of the things that I never thought I'd see that just came to fruition this June was we have our first woman CEO, Carol Tilmay, who came to us from the Home Depot. So thank you, Home Depot partners, for sharing Carol with us. She retired as the CFO from there, and so that's monumental. Certainly, there's still a note of women of color, but to have Carol at the helm of a global transportation company of nearly 500,000 people in 200 plus countries around the globe is pretty incredible.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Irma?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. When I think about it personally, I think about the evolution that's happened for me. When I started coming out of school. It was really this, you work hard and you do good work and it'll just keep coming, right? And I think now, if I were to reflect back, it's the idea that I really have a role in helping, and that role is formal and informal, right? So there might be programs at a large company like mine that are focused on sponsorship and mentorship, but also informally in those meetings, calling on people and making sure all those voices are heard. When I think about that change that's happened in me and recognizing the role I play. And then today, I lead marketing for Randstad here in the US, and we're in the business of employment, and the role that employment plays in people seeing who they are and how that's such an important part of people's definition, and it changes over time, and that's great. And how do we help people to see what their possibilities are and the opportunities and how those can change, I think is just really exciting for me to think about, you know, what we can do and how we can help make a difference for people and based on their situation.
And with that said, Irma, I'm going to go right back to you and say, how do you use your voice?
Yeah.
You know, that's what we're here trying to figure out and help perhaps other women do. So how have you noticed, what have you done to use your voice to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think this idea of my voice, I think the real first step was finding my voice. And there isn't really a timeline on that. And the idea of the importance of finding your own voice, and that important part is your own voice. I think for so long, you know, I'm told women have a tendency of taking on other people's voices, and when I reflect personally, you know, it took a long time to figure out what is my voice, and based on that, I found that then that helped me be able to lead others in finding their voice, and the examples over my career, I've dramatically changed the industries that I've worked in. So compared to some others on our panel, so I was with Pam actually at the Coca-Cola company for many years in my career, shifted into working at the American Cancer Society, leading marketing, and now leading marketing for Randstad in the space of human resources solutions. And the common thread, oftentimes you can find, well, I don't know as much as all these others who might be in the room, especially as you're new to an industry. CMO, when I was at the American Cancer Society, was the chief medical officer. It didn't matter necessarily what marketing meant. But your voice is really one that's more personal and authentic, and you have to constantly be seeking to shape that and helping to educate people in regards to here's what I do know and here's what I can bring to the table. And I think that that was really important for me in regards to both using my voice and then seeing where it can make the greatest impact in the organizations I work in, as well as the people that I work with.
Susan, how have you used your voice?
I think I'm still finding it in a lot of respects. I think when I first started to get it, it was with help. I think that the value of mentorship for me, I had a former boss who really helped me find it. I was not confident enough to speak up for what I wanted with my career, and that was going to get me overlooked and not put up where I needed to be. And so with a little bit of coaching, I was able to go back and tell my new boss, you know, and ask what skill sets that I was lacking, that I wasn't being considered, versus just normally just going along with and agreeing that, okay, I wasn't ready when I was previously kind of labeled ready. And I just wasn't strong enough to do it at the time, but he, you know, helped me make that pitch again. And so that to me was career changing, life changing. I wouldn't be sitting here today without maybe having gone back and rehabbing that conversation. And so I think that's really important, that value of mentorship, sponsorship. I'm sure we'll probably talk more about that, but you have to be receptive to it too. I really didn't realize my old boss was my mentor, you know, till after the fact. So you call it what you want, but we can't go it alone. You really need people to really help you, and so that really helped get me going for my voice.
Was that a male or female boss?
He was a male.
Okay, all right. Pamela, your voice.
You know, it's interesting because I'm reflecting today, and today is the 57th year anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. And in that same vein, that's kind of how I've navigated my career is the role is the role, and I will intentionally always over-deliver on that role with the technical capabilities and the EQ capabilities. But what I've tried to do is actually have a platform beyond that role. And so I spent time leading the Multicultural Leadership Council with the company. I'm now currently on the Global Women's Leadership Council and in several boards leading as chair and co-chair externally to the company. And so I've just decided that it's not just okay for me to have a wonderful career, in which I can absolutely accredit Coca-Cola for a large line share of that experience. It's most importantly special that I make sure that it's easier for everyone else. And that even though it's been difficult for my ascent, that it won't be difficult for others. And so my voice, I really realized three things out the gate. The first is I don't need the validation from someone else to share that voice. And that's going to be an incredibly important realization for everyone in the room and on the phone. The second piece is that not only does my voice matter, but my vision and opinions matter. And then the third is that when I come into the room, I am very, very clear what I uniquely contribute. And I think as people begin to take an assessment of who they are, what their prototype is, what their passions are, and what they actually create, both from an intrinsic and extrinsic standpoint, if they're clear when they come into the room, that provides the confidence to speak up, do more, and when something is said that you know is not right, to make sure that you're the voice of reason, do it gingerly, but definitely do it directly. And so that's how I've managed my career so far.
All right. And you get the last one at this, Jennifer.
That was a hard answer.
That is.
She has a very strong, clear voice, which is fabulous. I have found my voice, I think I'm a little bit more simple of an answer. My voice has been found over my career with help of mentors and sponsors, in all honesty. And then also, I am a big believer that you need to have a collective board of advisor type. It's not just one or two people. I don't believe in one mentor, one sponsor. I definitely have had them, and I'm blessed by them. And I have to be honest, they've been, more often than not, have been men, which has been an interesting thing for me, because when I reflect on that, I'm like, where are the women? Right. And I want to be one of those women. For me, my voice is to be a woman for other women. That's really important to me. That's something that I think I've worked on hard. That's something that I work on for my voice.
With that said, let me ask each of you, have you helped women? Have you been that mentor? Have you been that person that has helped someone move up to the next level? Can you think about someone you've helped?
I can. I mean, yes, the answer is yes. That is something that I'm sure all of our companies embrace. That is part of an obligation at a certain point in your career. It is really an obligation to look back and to help others. And that we at Cox have an official mentoring program, but outside of the mentoring program, I still have mentees. And more often than not, my mentees are women, and they are women of color. And I learn as much from my mentees as they learn from me. So I will be honest, I think you have to look at a mentee-mentor relationship as a partnership. And yes, there's no question that some of the people I have mentored have definitely improved in their career, but more importantly, I know I've improved because of them. So I think it's a holistic relationship.
Oh yeah, all right. And Pamela, I know some of your mentees, but yeah, I'm gonna ask you. Have you helped anyone? Have you been that person?
Yeah, I hope to believe I have. I'll put it that way. But I think that was wonderfully said, because for those in the room and on the phone, that will be the most important pivot for all of you. While you're going through the ranks, particularly to the manager level, it's going to be a me focus. What are the skills I can get? What's the exposure I can get? What's the platform I can have? The true pivot happens right when you edge into that director level or that people leadership role, because that's when you, in order to be effective and have broader impact, you have to shift from a me focus to a we focus. And I think all of us on the panel represent that. And it's an important shift, because those who don't make the shift will not have the ascent that's in their vision. And so if people can do that more, I think there will be a broader impact. Your lot actually improves. So I hope to believe that not just women, but people of all classifications I've helped, largely in part because I made an intentional shift when I was a manager, and just before that, to be we focused versus me focused.
Yeah. Susan?
So my most recent one just was promoted to a director like 3 months ago.
Wow.
And I think it's important too that we mentor people that don't look like ourselves too. So she just is also an amazing woman of color. And you know, I think the biggest thing that I did was let her go. She was the best manager I had. I did not want to give her up. We were just rocking and rolling, and I knew that giving her to another group to check that final box of experience based on what she had been doing in the D&I space for me and getting some additional visibility, that would be the final thing to launch her career. And so to shout out to my colleague Stephanie, because she was well deserved, and it took a long time for her to get there, but you know, it'll just be amazing to watch her thrive.
She's there, Stephanie. We hope you're watching.
I think she is.
And Irma, I know you have as well.
Yes, no, definitely. The one thing I would add, especially for many who may be here in the room or on the video, is that sometimes when you're earlier in your career, you think it's very intimidating to start to develop one of those mentoring relationships. I urge you to, it's beneficial for the mentor as well, and don't feel like if I were to go back and consider myself in those early stages of my career, I wish I hadn't felt so that, oh, they don't have the time for me, they're not really interested. Right. There is such mutual benefit. And you'll know. I mean, and it's okay if you try it, sort of like dating in a way. Like you might not get it right, but you'll figure it out, and it'll become natural.
That's right.
And you'll be reading something, you'll be like, oh my God, I know Allison would love to see that. I should just ping it over, and vice versa. And you're not going to have a zillion of those, and it's not quantity. It's actually fewer in quality. Right. But the variety is really. In the ones that you have, important. And as we talk to this group, I think it's important also to think, you know, the white male or the black male, like those kinds of mentors or mentees are also very valuable because the perspective that you can get. And though for me, it was more comfortable, you know, and I still find myself finding that more ease or comfort with female mentors, but I urge you, you know, they say growth comes from, you know, being uncomfortable, and that's also true when you think about developing this kind of relationship.
What a great way to segue into my next question. Growth becomes uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And this is something I pulled out my phone because I put this on social media just a couple days ago. I've never met a strong person with an easy past. Be proud of your scars and that you're still standing. I say that to say, have you had anything in your life, in your career, that you would say now was perhaps more like a failure, more like a, wow, wish that hadn't happened, or wow, that was my uncomfortable point, and now I've grown from it? Talk to us about it, because I think people will really, they see you all successful now. Nobody ever thinks anything bad happened to any of us. Boy, are they wrong, I'm sure. But tell me, what was it? You know, and I'll start this one. You know, working in the media industry, especially as of late, but when I came here originally, I worked for WGNX, CBS 46, which is where I am again now, but it was a Tribune company, so they had been sold. So they were sold to Meredith. When the new managers came in, I just thought everything was going to be fine, everything was going to be great, and a friend called from, you know, a network that I've known forever, and she said, hey, your bosses are in town, and they are talking to me about coming to work there. And I said, that's awesome, we are finally going to get to work together. She said, that's what I said to them. And they said, no, you're going to replace her. Had no idea. No one ever mentioned it to me. No boss ever said a word. They just smiled at me, ate dinner with me, and talked to me. That to me was just a jab in the ribs, because I thought things were fine. You know, I just had my second child. I thought, oh, things are great. So they weren't great. And I decided before they changed things up, I better find another job. And I did. I went straight over to WXIA, Channel 11, which was lucky for me, but it also had a lot of soul searching. I would go home crying, thinking, what have I done wrong? You know, why didn't they want to keep me? What could I have done differently? So I want to hear from you all, what's that point? And Pam, I'm going to change up. I'm going to go to you first.
No, I welcome it. And that's actually, it's almost tightly wound there. So if you think about it, probably about, I'm going to get the dates wrong, 2015. I'll put it there. 2015, I'd had a successful run, but the organization restructured dramatically. And that organization kind of spun out and became a new organization. And all of my sponsors at that time, the lion's share of my sponsors had either retired or had been let go. And so just to put an imagery there, I was out in the ocean without an oar. And I didn't have a life jacket on to swim to the shore. And I remember, and I write about this now and it will come out soon, but I remember circling the drain where everyone felt that if anyone said my name, they would have positive reflections, but there was no one taking action to make sure that I was pulled to the shore at the time. And I was largely in part, not because of anything that was happening, it was largely in part because I didn't speak up that I needed the help. I had all of these people who were champions among me, but because they weren't identified explicitly as sponsors or mentors, I was silent until one day I realized that I had to take action. If anything was going to be different about my own career or my own life, I had to make the decision, because there is no one obsessing about your career like you are obsessing about your career and your livelihood. And so that recognition made me realize that I had to make a key decision. First, I had to make it known that here are my skill sets, I'm here. And what was beautiful about that experience in short order is there were people who were champions among me, and everyone said, well, I thought this person had, I thought this person was, I thought this, people didn't realize that I wasn't in the fold. And just like always, as soon as I made it known, I was pulled into the fold. I was discussed, I shared different opportunities, and I continued my ascent in my career. So my reflection on that is this: the only person who's going to make a pivot about your career is the person who has the most self-interest, you. The second is when you feel like you are helpless, hopeless, or overwhelmed, it is a universal call that you have to take action for yourself in the best interest of yourself. And the third is give the benefit of the doubt. There are people who are champions among you who may think that John may already have you taken care of and Sarah may already have you taken care of. Until you make your voice audible and your wishes known and your vision explicitly outlined, people won't show up because they will think that you're already taken care of. And that was the experience that I had. I was pulled to the shore, and certainly I've had an ascent since then.
All right. Jennifer?
I don't want to follow. Can I just clarify that?
Never again.
But I'll do it. So my wake-up call was early in my career. So this is really more of a conversation for the younger members of the audience. I trained to be a lawyer. Obviously, I went to law school, and I always had the vision I was going to be a litigator. I started my career as a litigator. I litigated for 4 years, and I hated every minute of it. I mean, hated it. I would literally get sick before I went into a courtroom, but I was a litigator. That's what I was going to do. So suddenly I was like, well, that's not healthy. So I decided to go in-house and manage litigation. Well, that didn't help me anymore because I don't like litigation, so managing it. So I say that from the perspective I had to literally take a pause and I switched careers completely in the sense of a legal world. When you're 4 years into being a lawyer, it's sort of hard to suddenly go sell yourself as, oh, here I am, I'm a fabulous corporate lawyer. Right. Never done it, but you should hire me now. So, but I did that to the sense I literally went and sort of started over with a different company, and I got a whole different skill set at another company, and I was blessed. But what my point of that is I had to sort of stop and reflect and realize what was important to me. I mean, my vision of who I wanted to be and who I was were not the same thing. And that's what I had to like slow down and appreciate who I am as a person. I'm a great lawyer, a great corporate lawyer. I'm not a trial lawyer. I'm not that person who can win every argument. That's just not my personality. But I didn't want to admit that to myself, so it was 4 long years. When I reevaluated and I started a different track, I was able to get into a track that really was perfect for me. And that was 4 years too long. What I would say to anybody that's starting in their career is listen to your gut. Don't just get a picture in your brain of what you want to be, but pay attention to really what makes you happy and what your skill set is good at, and then you're going to find the right course for your career.
Quick question on that. Did you still work at the same company those 4 years, or did you just leave and regroup?
Great question. I left. I left and I regrouped. I couldn't, no, I did not stay. So, and maybe you could stay.
That's that uncomfortable thing, though.
Yeah,
you have to do it.
I realized for me I had to leave that firm. It wasn't the right environment. And it's great, but it wasn't right for me.
Okay. So,
This is a great question, Karyn, because I think that I found throughout my career, like, we talk about all the successes and you hear and you look at other people and you don't think, you don't hear about the failures, so we don't share it. It's not comfortable either. It's, it's not fun, but that's where you do learn the most. And I think for me it was, we've all worked for tough bosses, and I worked for one that really, really put me to the test. Really took that confidence that I had built and it was chipping away at it, and everything that had made me successful made me question it, and that's really hard when you're in that and trying to figure out, like, what can you do right? You can't, you kind of feel like, I thought, well, maybe this just isn't for me anymore. Maybe we're good where we're at. I started looking for jobs. I started questioning whether I wanted to stay. And I think that was good too, because I wanted to be in control of my career. I felt like if I was going to leave, it was my choice. If I was going to stay, it was still my choice. And I realized, people come and go, but I love my company. I love my coworkers, and I still loved the person I worked for. We just weren't on the same page, and I had to figure out, how do you get there? How do you meet in the middle? And it took a lot. It took a lot of help from other leaders at work, from my family members, my husband, who's here and really supportive, and got me through a really difficult time. And it also makes you realize too, like in the future, what you're willing to accept and not accept moving forward. So I think maybe had I not had that experience, it wouldn't have made me even stronger and even be able to help other people navigate through those type of situations.
all right, Irma, time to fess up.
Yeah, it's interesting. And as I heard the other panelists' stories, I was like, well, what can I share that would be a bit, also distinct? And there's this continuing this idea of being uncomfortable and creating moments of discomfort. So, there's definitely been challenges throughout my career. I'd say those challenges, though, as you take them and you think about, hey, this is what's making me richer and better. And so some people will, I'll talk to them and they'll be like, well, you were at Coca-Cola. Why would you go to the American Cancer Society? Or you were leading marketing for the Cancer Society. Why would you go to Randstad and maybe not be able to pronounce, like, what is Randstad, right? and when I step back and I really, like, I was like, wow, I'm leaving what was an amazing career at the Coca-Cola company and then getting the opportunity to take a global brand that really hadn't thought of itself as much as a brand when I went to the American Cancer Society, and brought in that and infused what was so important for a nonprofit to think about in the context of digital marketing and how dynamic and what needed to be done, and had the opportunity to bring that to that organization. 5 years into that, they were operating and continue to operate, well, unfortunately, current state is very challenging, but when I left in a good place, and I frankly had become comfortable because the leaders I had had the opportunity to bring in and the work that we had done, in some ways and this is a different conversation, was a lot of what I had done when I was at the Coca-Cola company and now was doing with the American Cancer Society. And then had the opportunity to join Randstad, and it was new and it was dynamic and is a global enterprise, and it scared the heck out of me, but at the same time I was so drawn and excited by that. And so that challenge of what happens of becoming comfortable, because there was an element of like, well, Irma, what you got is so good. Why would you go somewhere else, and why would you do something different? And I think there's a nugget in regards to that internal hardship that you put on yourself, because I could see as I was talking about this new opportunity and interviewing, I was like, wow, this is really exciting, even though it was scary. I have, teenage children, and I have this, and everything was working so well. But there's that sort of that epiphany that comes from, trying and going in and, just going there.
With that said, and you think about reinventing yourself, your wheel, what needs to happen, how do you, if you want to stay at your company, you want to move up, you want to be in senior management, there are no women in management, let's say at the company, or no minorities in management, how do you own your ask? If you say, I want to do this, I need a new contract, I need more money. Women are notorious
that's fair.
for not being able to own the ask, and I'm one of those,
Yeah.
How do you do it? Let's see, Susan.
I think preparation is key, right? You can't go into it without doing your homework, and because I think that, I know that every time I've done that, if I haven't been prepared enough and confident enough, then I'll just ramble or I'll just blow it. And so I think the whole preparation and knowing what you want to put down, building a solid plan, and then again, practice, get some feedback from people before you go and do it, because if you don't, it becomes really easy to take something that is going to give people a reason to shoot it down. So, and if you don't succeed, then what do you need to do next, right? Don't give up, is just build a solid plan. And I think that, watching others that have done things successfully, that's why I say the homework is you can always find examples of people and people, especially with the internet, just finding and figuring out what did they do. So I love to just steal bits and pieces of people's success stories that they share and then make it your own, because I think that that's key too. You can't be someone else. It has to be true to you. You have to go in and that's what makes you qualified and valued for the job. You're not trying to be somebody else. And if you do your homework and preparation, sometimes it doesn't pay off for us, but if you never go and make the ask, you don't know.
Absolutely.
And you're right, I find that a lot in women, I find that in myself, that's, guys will just be about 10% ready and say, put me in coach, and we'll be 150% ready, and someone will tell us, go in, and we're like, no, not me, right. I'm not ready, someone else should. And so it's like, why not me, right? It's just, I think building confidence and self-esteem and over time with people, and I think we have to start doing that when kids are young too. I think it starts with the interactions we have with our own children, with people we meet, and helping kids in schools and all that, learn that early on, because that is so critical to business.
Especially if you have girls. Irma?
Well, what's interesting is I'm working for a company that has a female CEO, a female CFO, core head of sales divisions that are women. It was really alluring and exciting for me, and again, as I said, I was drawn to this company. And throughout the organization, as that is infused, has really been amazing. Throughout my career, I'd lean on the comments that you made. As you go into those conversations, you have to go into them with a confidence, and there's an element that sometimes it might not feel that you are that confident behind the scenes, but you have to show up with that kind of confidence. And for me, I would say day to day, I get the opportunity to see that just in terms of not just those types of personal tough conversations, but the influencing that happens day in, day out within business. I'd say take note of that because those can be really instructive in regards to when you need to have those kinds of conversations about your own personal career as well.
And I will say Randstad, I mean, you're Randstad US, but
yes.
It's not a US company. I think there's so much more ahead of the game outside of the US.
We're based out of the Netherlands, and there is definitely a European dynamic that is you know, embodies a lot of the changes that we're seeing as part of a global organization and you know, as our global economy.
Right. All right, Jennifer.
So I think I'm just going to build on what's been said because I think they've done an amazing job answering the question. The two things I would say is, in addition to that, is when you own your ask, give specifics of why you are ready. Don't just state it, but give the specifics. And then something that I'm still working on, because I was raised where you don't really brag about yourself. It was considered bad manners to sort of promote yourself. But I have learned that that's get rid of that. Get rid of that noise in your head.
Do it.
Tell them why you're the best. I mean, be comfortable saying, I am the best. I'm the best because blah, blah, blah. Versus, I'm the best because I have the best team. No, you're the best because you're the best.
And
So
then how do you
just
get the
own your
money because you're the best? How do you do that part of it?
Well, that's a great one too. You have to actually, you're right, you have to be prepared for that. A great point. You have to bring the stats. You can't just say, I need a raise because I really am good and you love me. That doesn't do it. You have to give you have to have the facts.
All right. So Pamela, how do you own the ask?
I think these ladies actually, it was perfect. So I would say be very clear what you're trying to solve. Sometimes people go prematurely into the ask, particularly salary increases, when all they want is more recognition, a bigger platform. So be very clear what you're trying to solve, and so that you can articulate it with confidence. I think the second thing is, and I don't know if Jennifer or Susan or Irma said it, probably the combination, but come lay out the facts, both qualitatively and quantitatively. What I mean by that is make sure you are able to demonstrate what your IQ, your actual capabilities are generating. And then separate from that, make sure you're able to articulate what your leadership capabilities are generating. And so that you can balance the conversation on why you're most notable for the ask, particularly in these times where both matter in organizations. And then the third is the preparation and the realization of your own worth. Don't wait for the company to confirm your worth. So in the event you're in an organization, you've stayed in the organization and the organization has not been willing to give you that pay raise. Let's say you've taken 2 different stabs at it and they're not willing to give that pay raise. Always know that you have a third option. That third option is the one that you make that may not involve that company. And you have to be willing to exercise that option in order to continue, again, your ascent. And some people not everybody wants to be a CEO. Some people just want to create a livelihood. But let me be clear, these years that we're experiencing now, these are our income earning years. And so you have to make the third option available for yourself if you're not heard, seen, appreciated, or valued in the company. So I think preparation, quantitative and qualitative outline of why you deserve it, the understanding of what you're trying to solve, and then the realization that you are always the one in charge of your livelihood and the next action if the company fails to meet you halfway.
All right, Pam, with that said, let me ask you this. You are navigating as a senior vice president at a global company headquartered here in Atlanta, Georgia, which announced today some restructuring.
Yeah.
How do you do that as a Black woman and not be uncomfortable?
Yeah. I think it comes down to this, Karyn. If you think about it, I always say this. So fortunately or unfortunately, I've experienced extreme adversity personally and professionally. And it's given me a clarity of what levers you need when you're managing through ambiguity, through anxiety, through the unknowns. And there are only 3 levers. You have to be very, very clear. So clarity becomes significantly important. Clear about the direction, clear about what steps are needed, clear about what you need to do, what your team needs to do. So that's the first. The second is you have to be extremely calm. So I always liken it to being on a plane. Most of us fly or have flown at least once in our lifetimes. And anyone who's done an over the ocean experience on the plane, once you hit the Atlantic or the Pacific, the plane begins to jumble. So much so that if you're not clear-headed, you'll think that the plane's going to go down with you in it. But something happens. The pilot comes on the air, and the pilot says, I want you to relax. We're going over water. You'll experience bumpiness. This is what's going to happen. But if you give us 20 minutes, we'll get you through it. You have to be able to be that person. So calmness is critical. The third, transparency. Good, bad, or indifferent. You have to meet head on the facts. And you have to do it in an honorable way where people's hearts can absorb it. And so I leverage clarity, calmness, and transparency. I literally came out of the announcement. I met with my leadership team. I gave them everything I had. And then on that same phone call, I became their mentor and coach because these are people's lives. And I reminded them that no matter what the decision on the other side of the next 30 to 60 days, they won't just be all right, but they'll thrive, regardless if it's a continuation on the journey with Coca-Cola or a continued journey elsewhere.
I've never been on that plane, Pamela. I'm sorry. The pilot never says that. I'm usually shaking until I get where I'm going. All right, so let's talk about this, ladies. And Irma, I want to start with you because you kind of mentioned leaving ACS, going to Randstad. Do you reinvent yourself? How do you prepare yourself for that next chapter of your life?
Well, it's a good question. I think, there's an element, hopefully, of constant reinvention that's not driven based on leaving an organization. Yeah. And a new organization, or when you're moving into it, I think creates a new platform. So ironically, it was just a year ago, so I did take the opportunity to buy myself some new clothes that have been sitting in the closet, unfortunately, for the past 6 months. So there was that piece of, hey, new role and just wanting to feel good about yourself. But there's a reinvention in regards to what is my new, what's the opportunity as I look into this new role? But I sort of take that stock, every year. And I have just actually celebrated my 1-year anniversary at Randstad, and it was an opportunity for me to take stock as to, okay, what's happened, where have I grown, what have I learned, but what am I going to grow and what am I going to learn, and also what am I going to accomplish, as that's expected of me. But I think that should be part of an annual process that's not dependent upon where you are. I tend to like to use my annual anniversary with the company for that, and rather than the new year, it just works better. But I think for me, it made me step back and realize, hey, here's what's been really great. It was, of course, a very unusual year, but here's what we accomplished, here's what we got done, but then here's also now what I want to do and what I think is really important as we go forward.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Cynthia, I'm going to get you in here. Let's give them a big round of applause.
They're awesome. And we do have some questions from folks who are watching, and also probably questions from some of the folks in the room. If you have a question, raise your hand and we'll come over and get to you. Mark, I know you've got one. Let's see, Mike, can we go to someone who's watching via Zoom real quick? I see Calandria Lee, Talent Management with Southern Company. Hi, Calandria.
Good afternoon, Cynthia.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
What did you think of the conversation today so far?
My goodness, I have been absolutely blown away with all the nuggets. I have been over here scribbling on my notepad, lots and lots of great takeaways. So thank you so much for this very engaging conversation.
I love it. Do you have a question, or some of the other folks from Southern Company, do they have some questions that they want answers to?
Sure. So some of this has been discussed today about finding our voice and being courageous enough to speak out. But how do you move past that fear of retaliation? You're clear on your vision, you're clear on all of these things that you want to say, but there is still some component of fear that, kind of almost overtakes you as you want to call out inequities that you might see or speak up and ask for that promotion. How do you move yourself past that fear?
Who wants to tackle that question? How do you move past that fear of retaliation?
I'll take it. I think that, I don't know that you ever fully move past it, right? You're always going to have some sense of fear and things, but I think that you leverage the right contacts through your organization, whether it's going to, the HR team or, a prior leader that you worked with. Just get some good counsel, and just, I think that just if you get some good advice and you feel really sure about what you're doing, you kind of know and you trust your gut. I think you go with your instinct. You've already probably talked to your family members. Again, whether you use HR or another leader at your organization. I mean, that's what, I spent, my career in HR, and I think that, we can be an underutilized resource. I mean, that's what our HR teams are there to help guide people through things. And also, leverage, there's so many external networks or coaching or different tools or people that you can connect with. Just met a lady here today who has her own coaching company, so maybe we'll have to shout out, so find someone who can help you through it. But I think that, like said, fear, I think we think fear is such a bad word, right? And, sometimes it's okay. We just have to figure out how to dig deeper and surround yourself with the right people to pump you up and that whole preparation that we talked about earlier.
Okay, great suggestion. Let's go over here to Mark. You have a question. This is Mark Zimmerman.
I more or less, well, first of all, ladies, great job. Let's give them all a hand. And Cynthia, great job. But I got to say this statement. All right, so I've got some folks that came here who mean a lot to me. But the number one lady in here, Kathy Andrews, I want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand. She hired me in January 16th, 1986.
Wow.
It changed my life. So let's give her a hand.
All right, we're going to go to some of the questions that Lisa has been receiving via chat. I'm on my way over, but before we do that, let's speak with Ann, who is joining us from the Home Depot. We have a really big crowd from the Home Depot.
Oh, nice.
So glad you all are with us. Ann, what kind of questions are you hearing?
Hi.
Hi.
Just wanted to say thank you, first of all. All of you women are extremely inspiring. I've been with Home Depot 27 years, and you're just very, very inspiring. So if you could, I'd love to hear from you all. During your workday, where do you spend most of your time?
Where do you spend most of your time? Where are you spending most of your time during the workday now?
Is the question in relation to today, like in real time?
During COVID?
During COVID? Oh,
Yeah.
So I spend it in the kitchen. It's a really unhealthy place to spend it. Just don't make your office your kitchen. It's been a little bit of a challenge putting on these pants today. But we are working from home, and we're doing a lot of Zoom calls, and I feel blessed every day that I still have a job and that people are staying healthy and safe, but we're working remote.
Awesome. Likewise.
Likewise.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's been interesting. There's good and there's challenges. The good, I mean, I didn't realize how frenetic my life had been because of the commute and some of those small things, and some of it being involved, wearing leggings as opposed to, getting to wear the pantsuit that had been sitting in the closet for so long. But there's some learnings and reflection that come with that, as we will be adapting out of this at some point. So when I reflect on that, and in particular, as I'd mentioned, I have 2 kids that over the summer, though, it was really challenging when they weren't in school, regardless if they're on site or not, because I felt trapped behind this screen. And when you're at the office, you don't necessarily feel that distinction as much as, I know there's people working remotely all the time, not just because of COVID, but for me, there's been some learning in that, and the idea that now that they're also occupied with their school, it makes it, there's a different dynamic in regards to home and what to do, and
Wow.
It's been some neat learning.
And you didn't ask me, but I still wake up every day at 1:30 a.m., get dressed, head into the office, spend most of the workday there until about 2 in the afternoon.
So they didn't make you broadcast from home, Karyn?
No, I was explaining, because I'm the early shift, and my shift starts 4:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. They were worried that nobody would be able to help me if I had a problem at 3 a.m. So
That makes sense.
Greer and I had to truck it on into the station. So
Wow.
it's been interesting, though.
Pam, what about you?
Same. I'm also remote. Most of our associates, unless they're in the manufacturing plants, are remote. Spending technically though, just the amount of time you are touching your team, it's far more. I think Irma said it. I didn't realize before COVID, I was on the road globally and domestically 85%. And so to go from that to being stationary, I don't know if I'm made for that exactly, but what is really great about it is you're able to touch your team so much that the virtual world allows. So it's been fun.
All right, well, let's go to Lisa. I'm over here with Lisa Herman, who's amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa, for all your help these past several months. Sure. Who have you got who is writing in via chat? Looks like you've got a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, and if any of you are worried or not feeling confident, you should read these comments from our viewers. They're amazing. Everyone's very inspired. A lot of questions, though, are about the same kind of issue, and it's being too confident. They want to know, how do you address the intimidation and or aversion people often have when they encounter a powerful woman? Sometimes confidence in a woman they feel is viewed as being aggressive. Do you have any insights?
And those are questions from different people who are concerned about that, coming on too strong.
That's a very good point. Aggressive or bitchy is usually the term, so yes. Yes, you can start, Jennifer.
So I think you have to be yourself. There's always something about being polite, but there is nothing wrong with being an aggressive woman. I think that's a reframing that we have to do in our world. Yeah, you need to be polite and confident and being kind to people, but the reality is men get away with it every day, and I think true leadership is you've got the confidence to be prepared to speak to challenge when is necessary, and don't feel guilty about challenging, because that's what brings the dialogue and helps you get to better decisions. And if that comes across as too aggressive or bitchy, ignore that.
So be it.
So be it, exactly. I mean, it's easy for me to say sitting here, but that is how you will continue to advance in your career. Saying yes does not always bring the right result. Saying yes is easy in the moment, is not the right result. The other thing you can do is challenge in a different way so that people don't feel uncomfortable in the moment, but don't stop challenging. You have to challenge to get to a better result for the company that you work for. It's a great question. I'm sorry that it's still out there, to be honest, because that's been a question I think we've all heard our entire careers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, because you see from a lot of the data that most women really want to be liked.
Yes.
It's hard for everybody to like you if you're kind of running in and being seen as overly confident. So any other suggestions from anyone else on the panel about that? Because we're hearing a lot about this. We want women to be really confident, but there still is this huge reluctance.
I think it's hard. I don't know that there's a great answer to that. I think knowing your audience is really important part of it. You know, there's a time and a place for a certain type of what you're going to accept and not, or how you say things, and you have to, be really intentful with it. Sometimes it's time to sit back or do it privately, or not. Sometimes I think when we react with our emotions, so we want to make sure that we are going to remain professional, because no one's going to hear it if you're not using your voice the right way. It's going to get overlooked, and so I think you just have to be really smart and deliberate. It isn't easy, but I think finding role models that do it, like men and women, and then just kind of trying to emulate the ones that are respected and are in those positions, how they've done it. I just like to use those as the people I think about when I'm trying to have a reaction, or I'm formulating, like, how am I going to respond to this situation? What would that person do? And again, it isn't about becoming that person. You still have to be who you are, but you can kind of channel that mixture of different things that you've seen have worked, and then try that. And I think it's baby steps. I think we get better at things with practice. You're just not over going to go after today, all right, I'm empowered, I'm going to go speak up. You're going to just have to go little by little, and eventually over time you build that credibility and respect.
But I just want to supplement. I think Susan said it right. Read your room and read your audience. If you're coming on too strong, I mean, that's not being bitchy, that's being intuitive. I mean, you've got to find the emotional intelligence in the room. And if you are coming too strong, then obviously your message isn't going to be well received because you're not delivering it in a way that they're going to hear it. So that's something I think is, I have seen younger folks in my company not sometimes understand that. So that would be the one piece of advice I'd want to make sure you do pay attention to.
And not just in conversations, it's also too in emails, right? In our correspondence and our texts and the way we communicate, because the way someone can read your message can come across totally different. So I do a lot of coaching on people going like, reread this, or before you hit send it to yourself. You might want to think about it.
Or pick up the phone. I'm always amazed at how many people email. I'm so tired of emails. It's like, but now I'm actually tired of Zooms, and so I don't know. But I do think sometimes it's just easy just to pick up the phone. I do that with my team all the time. I'm like, just call me. It's a lot easier than texting.
All right, we've got another question over here. Wendy Babson.
So never in our lifetime did any of us think we would be living in a pandemic. None of us could have predicted, no corporation, no business. So where is our personal, emotional, and spiritual responsibility as corporations, and especially as women, on how we are going to collectively rebuild our country?
That's a very big question. Thank you, Wendy. Who wants to tackle that one?
Pamela.
Pamela?
Everyone's looking at Pamela.
She's awesome at that.
Miss Global?
I'm sorry, it was easy.
Here's what I would consider. I'm getting an echo, so let me do this. I'm going to speak from my phone, but hopefully you can see the visual here. Perfect. Here's what I would consider. Our responsibility first is to ourselves and our families, full stop. Because if we are not fully there and engaged and making sure that you can't bring your mind to the company if you don't have the home settled. And there are people who are caretakers of parents, caretakers of children right now. There's a lot coming to that. So I would say the first responsibility is self. Now coming into the corporate environment is the acknowledgement that despite your ability to navigate, particularly there are people among us who are natural change agents, to recognize that not all people are that. And to be very cognizant that you may have to say a couple of times when you're about to start a meeting, instead of going into the business, say, how's your mental health? How was your weekend? How's your family doing? Have you started school? And so stepping back and starting with humanity first, especially in your leadership style, regardless of lateral conversations or upward or downward, will be critical. And as far as the world, it is about our actions. It is, I think I shared it a little bit earlier, when you're not in the room, there are a lot of things that go on. But when you are in the room and you have an opportunity to correct people so that there's greater humanity, kindness, and respect of others, and there's a clarity of what's false versus true, you have to say something. And pointing back to the last question that I think is a little bit different, because as a Black woman, Black women tend to get the call out that you're not presidential, you're not executive material. It's hard to be presidential and executive material if you don't have anyone who reflects you at the top. So I would say when you are thinking about what your opinion, what your thoughts are, you can't wait for validation from any outside entity. To Susan's point, you have to, and Jennifer's, you have to be able to balance a fact-based, level-headed approach with anything you say. And you have to be certain that it's balanced in fact and level-headedness without emotion, so it can land on people. So the responsibility is self, then to your team, bringing in the humanity woven into all your conversations, and then to the greater world of being a beacon of embracing inclusion will be how we change the world. And then ultimately recognizing the words we say of, you're not presidential, you're not executive. It's very difficult for women to be that if you've never seen us at the top. Oftentimes, even if with yourself, watch how you identify tall men, tall white men especially, because you've seen that as the imagery of leadership you may identify them differently than you might someone who may look like me. And so you have to check that.
All right. Love that. Yeah, and you're helping to change that, Pam, and so many other leaders like you. Let's go back to Zoom because there is someone else joining us who I know has a question. Michelle Glover is watching. She's project director for The Edge, and I know you've got a big group of women business owners who are watching. What are some of the questions that they have, Michelle?
Yes, so thank you all so much for sharing this information. I mean, I was taking notes and trying to hashtag and take notes at the same time. But for those, I love, Karyn, how you asked the question about the owning your voice when it comes to salary negotiations. But before that, it's getting over the imposter syndrome, because if you don't feel that you're worth it, you're not going to feel confident to ask for what you really want. So I want to talk about the imposter syndrome, how it impacts women at a higher rate, and especially women of color. Have there been times in your career that you felt that imposter syndrome, and what did you do to overcome it?
Great question. Jennifer, I see you shaking your head. Have you ever felt that?
I definitely, yeah, I'm very transparent. I definitely felt that. When I talked about my career journey, when I finally was lucky enough to get a position at Cox, I really was like, I'm not qualified, and I went to spun it, and I had no idea. I thought the imposter syndrome was something I invented. I didn't realize it was a thing until I actually started reading about it. So I would say, how did I overcome it? You know what? I worked hard. I took some deep breaths. I learned to run. I learned to find a quiet space in my head. I made work what it was. It was a priority in my life, but it wasn't all of my life. I put a lot more emphasis on my relationship. I found a husband in this time period, and I realized my life was much bigger than just my job. And in that turn, I became much better at my job because I think I became much more of a whole person. It's sad. I don't know why women do that to themselves. We all do. I don't want to say all of us have the imposter syndrome, but it clearly is more, it is a woman thing. And it's something we all need to work. You have to figure out how to shut that voice off in your head.
So do you fake it until you make it? You didn't say that part, Sue. You're shaking your head.
Yes, absolutely. I use that phrase all the time. Well, that's, Jennifer, what you're saying reminded me when I first got promoted, and I fought so hard, right, for that boss to say, no, I'm ready. And then all of a sudden you're put in and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Because as soon as everybody's looking at you to make the decisions, I'm like, I've been here like 3.2 hours so far in this role, and now I'm expected to know all the answers. And you kind of go back in your Rolodex of thoughts and all the things that people have fed you and you've learned and watched other people from. And I realized like the best thing for me for the fake till make it was time. Like if our building wasn't burning down, then I didn't have to make a decision right away. And I realized that I could just go, let me think on that, or I'll get back to you, or I'm in the middle of something, can I call you back, or let's re-meet in a couple hours. And I'd call my friends and family and say, what would you do in this situation? And it would validate what maybe I'd already thought, or I hadn't thought of something yet. But then I'd come back, and then I was making the decision, but no one knew that I was freaking out, didn't know what to do. But you just leverage the resources and tools you have, and again, you're going to feel sometimes that self-doubt, and you're going to think. Because everybody does that. So you think, oh, I'm the only one that feels that way, because we're not being vulnerable and telling people, I had no idea. Right. So sharing those experiences, I think, is really important with the next generations of leaders coming up, because otherwise they look at you and think, oh, you have it all put together. I'm like, no, I have nothing put together. I'm a hot mess right now, and that's okay. And I think that's what people connect to and relate to, and we're all human and gonna make mistakes, but buy yourself some time, and that way you can fake it.
Great answer, great question, and now we know it happens pretty much. Has it happened to everybody up here? Pam, has it happened to you? Even you? Karyn? Yes? All of us?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's happened to
All
me.
of us.
But I do think there's an element
unanimous.
of being vulnerable that's okay also.
Right.
So, this idea of faking it till you make it, like there's the right time and place and with the right people, but the authenticity that comes with being vulnerable, that, hey, I don't know everything, is also really validating and helps you be able to connect and learn more so that in the bigger picture, you're able to make a greater impact. So don't, and there's no right answer. You have to feel it out for yourself, but I would say I found that my greatest progress happened when I was open to being okay that I don't know. And,
great point.
And with the
It is
people.
okay to say to people you don't know the answer. I mean, as a lawyer, I think people think I know every answer. I don't know half the legal answers. So you have to say, I don't know, but I will find out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with finding out.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have just a short period of time left, and I want to share some takeaways because I want everybody who's watching to feel like they have some very specific things that they can go back and take action on. And then when I'm done, I want to go through super quick. Karyn, I want you to be part of this too. One super quick piece of best advice that you ever got. Okay, here are some takeaway things. Number one, find your personal, authentic voice. You don't need validation from anyone else. Find your own voice. Number two, have more than one mentor and sponsor. Number three, own your ask. Practice and get feedback first and tell them why you're the best. Tell them why you deserve it. Number four, overcome the imposter syndrome by finding a quiet place, running, faking it till you make it. You get the idea. All right, number five, growth comes from being uncomfortable. Number six, be proud of your scars and that you're still standing. And number seven, I want to challenge everybody to remember the hashtag use my voice. So if you write down, make a pledge here and now, I pledge to use my voice too. And I think another takeaway was only you can be in charge of pivoting your own career. It's really up to you. So do you all have anything real quick takeaway that you'd like to add to that? Let's start with Irma and then just go all the way down.
I mean, I sort of shared mine because it's so prevalent. This idea of growth comes from being uncomfortable. Be okay with the discomfort, as hard as that will be, not just professionally, personally, and those will intertwine those parts of your life.
As you go through your career, be you. It's what got you to those next levels. Don't become someone else that you're not, and then just keep your integrity. And those two things, and that confidence as well, even a third, are those guiding principles that I tend to live by.
Pam, you're on.
Thank you. Only allow yourself to validate your worth.
Mine is be intentional and be true to yourself. Listen to your gut.
And mine would be, and I always use this as a good friend Charmaine Ward says, what's the best advice for your 30-year-old self? You know, if you could look back and you're 30, what would you tell yourself? I think transparency is definitely key. It's important for people to know who you are, the real you, not the TV you or the corporate you or the boss you, but who you are. Because I didn't say in that first part of the story, the bosses told me, you know what, we want to have every station in Atlanta has a black female and a white male. We want a white female and a black male. Nothing I could do about that, you know? So be you.
And I also loved what Pam said, be calm, be transparent, and
Clear.
And be clear. Okay,
Clear.
That was how ironic. Fantastic panel discussion. You guys were so wonderful. Thank you for sharing your experiences and being vulnerable and real. Really, really great. We have just a little token of appreciation from Pink and UPS and all of our partners, or something pretty much from everybody in there. Thank you guys. Okay, now I just want to mention a few things. As you've heard today, the world is evolving. Here at Pink, we are evolving too, and we have an announcement that we want to share with you now. It's time for a global evolution, and Pink is evolving too. Cynthia Good here, and I'm excited to announce to you today Pink's membership model. The Pink Power Alliance, created with a lot of input from many of you. The Women in Pink's community have been asking for deeper connection with other dynamic influencers. They want to grow, to learn, to have impactful conversations, and to expand their already powerful networks. And companies have been asking for specific, highly relevant, and ongoing content addressing the most pressing issues of the day. And now we can deliver. After our recent Zoom series, Leading Through Crisis, 100% of respondents said they would recommend these to their friends or colleagues, and 100% said they'd recommend it to their companies. Why? Because of the diversity of speakers and topics, valuable resources and insights, because polls made it engaging and interactive, and because of deeper connection and belonging. We'll cover topics like race and gender, subconscious bias training, how to recruit more minority women, also sponsorship and managing work and life, since a lot of it these days is under one roof. We'll bring together experts and women leaders from top companies who can share best practices on things like coaching and branding. Also, you'll have access to speaker panels, mentoring, and image workshops. There is so much more we have the chance to learn, to do, and to be. Join us. Plus, you got to meet my little dog, Zuni, so that was kind of a bonus. We got her in there. Well, that's what we've been up to. We really want to be of service, even more service. We've gotten some fantastic feedback. We know there's a need, so we have this membership program we put together. What differentiates it from everything else is simply you. This community of extraordinary women. So definitely check it out. Lisa's gonna put something in the chat function so you can see it. There's information on the tables here. We would love for you all to be founding members, which would be super great. There will be gifts for signups. Thank you, UPS and our other partners for the gifts. There will be discounts on things like the upcoming Pink event. The next Pink event will be held on November 6th. And another panel of just completely extraordinary women who will blow you away, as our speakers did today. So save the date, check it out. Thank you again for being here. Thank you to our partners. Thank you to Cox Enterprises, to Truist and UPS, Southern Company, the Coca-Cola Company, the Home Depot, Carlisle for having us here, the Social Project. Shout out for the Atlanta Ballet. We really want to support the arts during this difficult time. And those of you who are in the room, you have a mask that was made by the costume designers at the Atlanta Ballet. So let's support the arts and just stay well, everybody, please. And remember to use your voice. Thanks, everyone.